Within the sort of business vertical, we sell quicken.com.au, which is one of Australia's leading small business sites, and also cch.com.au, again another strong vertical site, catering very much for the taxation professionals, the lawyers, the financial professionals, the accounting professionals. On the property side of things, we sell sites such as Home Price Guide, a couple of commercial real estate sites, Commercial Real Estate, propertylook.com.au, and also another residential site called realestateview.com.au. And then within the sort of entertainment and lifestyle sites, we sell sites such as RSVP, which is the #1 dating site in Australia, with around 28 million page impressions a month. So it's very much one of the biggest sites that we sell in terms of its size. Schoolfriends.com.au, again another
really popular site.
Totally, another leading sort of community-based website, and a couple of music sites, Ministry of Sound, and a cinema site, Reading Cinemas. And we also sell a toolbar application called Hotbar, which is a downloadable toolbar that people download, obviously, to personalise their emails and download graphic skins. And against that, we then sell pop-ups and other forms of advertising targeted depending on where a user is visiting on the web, depending what sites a user is visiting on the web.
Are you getting a lot of calls for pop-up advertising and beyond the banner advertising from media buyer planners?
We do to a large extent. There are certain agencies in the market who very much like to buy pop-ups or pop-unders. A lot of the websites.
Who's driving that innovation in advertising?
Well, I think it's coming from certain agencies themselves, but I guess equally too it's coming from their clients, as in their clients see it as being a very relatively cost-effective form of advertising. Usually for pop-ups and pop-unders, we can charge a higher CPM rate than we can for banners or for tower ads. But equally too, we need to obviously frequency cap those pop-ups and pop-unders to ensure that we're not detracting from the user's experience on the websites that they're visiting.
iBlaster?
iBlaster we do as well. Because we're not a portal or a single site per se, we represent a number of different sites. Each of these sites have different, I suppose, restrictions or parameters or guidelines within which we have to work. And so some of those sites will say no to any form of beyond the banner advertising, and others are very open to, very receptive to that sort of form of advertising.
Does that make it more complicated to sell to a media planner? You've obviously overcome the issue, or the market's overcome the issue by using products like DoubleClick or Atlas DMT to manage campaigns.
Correct.
But given that sites don't all take uniform advertising, a 30-second spot or an advertorial,
it does make it a little more difficult, and certainly it's one of the challenges that I guess as a network we have to face and try and overcome. But certainly equally too, the more in a sense we're pushed from advertisers and from agencies to take different forms of creative media on the sites, equally too we push our websites to accept that form of advertising, because they know in a sense that if they don't accept that form of advertising, then they're not going to get the money. And so it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So we're really selling in a sense two ways. We're selling both to the websites to take forms of advertising, and we're equally to selling to media buyers and to clients direct the merits of advertising on those particular sites.
How much influence do you think you then have over the larger portals you're perhaps selling against in terms of taking more innovative and creative forms of advertising? Would you be leading the market, influencing the market more easily, more effectively and faster than perhaps the portals? Find it a little bit more difficult to integrate?
I think, I'm not sure if leading the market would be the correct word. I think we're probably following the market to a certain extent. In that, I think certainly some portals, some publishers are a little more innovative in what they will accept, but equally too, a lot of the individual sites within our network are very innovative with the forms of advertising they will accept. One of the sites I neglected to mention earlier was a youth community site called FunkySexyCool.com.au, which is a site sort of targeted very much the 14 to 20-year-old market. Has around 7 million page impressions a month, but the guys running that site are very receptive to a variety of different forms of advertising. We can do obviously SMS marketing, email marketing. We can segment that via age, sex and state. We can integrate content onto the site. We can run eye blaster creative. So, that's an example of a site that is very, in a sense, cutting edge in terms of what it will accept advertising creative-wise on the site.
It sounds then that youth advertising offline or above the line is very much reflected online as well in terms of the level of creativity.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's definitely the case. I mean, there's certainly, I think youth are certainly more
demanding.
They're more demanding of interesting creative. They're not looking for just a straight advert. Whereas on some of the finance sites or property sites we sell, because the users are more, I suppose, of a more mature age, perhaps they're more focused or directed with their search on that particular site. They're less interested in seeing off-the-wall forms of advertising, whereas in the youth market they expect to be entertained by that form of advertising.
Of course. There's some research recently that was posted on eMarketer that banners aren't performing as well as they were, and consumers don't believe in online advertising in banner forms as much as they do in print or television. Are you finding objections when you go to advertisers and agencies on online advertising?
Well, to a certain extent, but I guess we're not just selling banners purely. We're selling, we're selling tower ads, or we're selling island ads, or other large format supersize ads. We're selling emails, or we're selling text inserts into newsletters, or we're selling pop-ups or pop-unders. So whenever we, in a sense, receive a brief from an agency for a particular client, we try and sort of go back to the agency with a package, if you like, of different advertising options, of which banners will be an important part of that, but it won't be the sole component of the campaign.
When we talk banners, we're talking about the
468 by 60s.
Yeah. Rather than you differentiate that from a tower and island. They perform better. Is that why you differentiate?
Correct. You certainly get a better click-through rate, and I guess it's because they're larger format ads. They're more visible. You can pack more into them. They're still very much standard sizes, if you like, but they're not. I guess the quantity or the volume of those ad slots are not as great as the quantity of banners on websites overall. So therefore, they're less likely to appear to be wallpaper, which in a sense is what banners are to a large extent.
What about text advertising? With the increased awareness and revenues coming from search advertising this year, are you finding a lot of advertisers are asking you for text-based advertising and advertorials?
Yes, we get a lot of that. And again, some of our sites are very receptive to running that form of advertising. The Quicken site, for example, is one where we run scrolling tickers, we run text links, we run advertorial type pieces onto the site. Again, they tend to prove quite effective in terms of generating click-through response. I think that seems to be across the board for all text link form of advertising that I can see, because it really appears to integrate more fully with the site, so it almost appears as if it's a part of the site. So you could almost say that it deceives the user into actually clicking on that text link to go through, but the click-through is achieved and the user's gone through to the to the advertiser site.
When you go into the market, do you find yourself competing against the larger portals, perhaps the Fairfax network of sites as financial sites, or are you competing more against the Max Interactives, the 3Ds, the Tempests?
It really depends, I guess, to a large extent on the client, because we in a sense, we do have that speciality in business and finance, and to a lesser extent now in property. And so, therefore, clients who would come to us, in that sense, we would therefore be competing perhaps more directly with F2 and with News Interactive. To the best of my knowledge, networks such as Tempest and Max Interactive don't necessarily have the same suite of sites in the business, finance and property arenas that we do. I could be incorrect in saying this, but I think their speciality perhaps is more in big ticket consumer-based sites, and certainly I think in Max Interactive's case, one of their key sites is the car sales website, which is the #1 site in its category. So I know they do quite well in that. So it really depends very much on the advertiser that is coming to us as to who we compete most directly with. But in a general sense, I guess, as we are a network, as Tempest and 3D and Max Interactive are, then in that sense we compete, I suppose, most closely with them in an overall point of view. And then obviously to to a lesser degree with the F2s and the 90%s.